What is up, jabronis? JJ back here from Run Pure Bets, talking a little MLB. This will be a rundown slate for Tuesday, August 9th. Haven't done one of these all year, I don't think. Normal week, regular week. Well, I usually do these on the weekends or maybe occasionally I sneak in on a Monday holiday or Friday holiday, but for the most part, these are usually done. Usually done on weekends, but I didn't have my best showing this weekend for you guys in the live shows. And granted, obviously I don't expect many of you to watch this live, but Ryan, what's up? What's up, my man? But obviously you guys will be able to run through this tomorrow in terms of, getting some bets or getting some games in. So I'm going to run through these games relatively quickly. Some lines we have, some lines we don't. It's also a double header in the mix. But I did fire on 2 games for tomorrow, so you'll get those too. But without further ado, we can just roll right in. So Royals White Sox game 1 of the doubleheader tomorrow. I don't know if the line is out for this yet. I don't think so. It is going to be Lance Lynn, Brady Singer. If I'm making this line, it's likely going to be about. Actually, you know what? I forgot. Singer gets like decent industry respect. This actually is probably going to be a decently close line. If I had to say, this is probably going to be White Sox minus 120. So, pick your poison there. As you guys know, I don't really fuck around with doubleheaders anyway. But assuming this line's about 120, that would be where I would mark it. So, obviously, if this line opens up White Sox minus 150, which it won't, there would be value on the Royals. If this line were to open Royals minus 130, there would be value on the White Sox. So just some perspective there. But overall, we don't have a line yet, so it's tough for me to distinguish there. Singer's been great all year. To be honest, I think he was a candidate that potentially should have been traded from this team. One of the lone bright spots in this Royals team in general this season. He's been great. But ultimately, we don't have a line yet, so I can't really give much. There's also a lot of inflated lines for tomorrow, but that's going to be common, right, moving forward as you have your creme de la creme and you have a bunch of teams more or less giving up as we get closer and closer to the end of the year. So Phillies, Marlins, Zach Wheeler going up against, is that Braxton? So Braxton Garrett for the Marlins. Now, Phillies got a pretty fat line here at 240. Makes sense, though, right? I will say this. This is a low number for this park. A very low number. Now, I get it. Wheeler's been good. And the Marlins haven't really been hitting all that well for quite some time now. Garrett's been a decently bright spot on this team, but I do worry about how much foot traffic he gives up and how many jams he finds himself in. But granted, his ERA is what it is, surface level or not, it's decent. His advanced stuff isn't exactly backing him up all that much, though. So it's tough to love in every aspect. I will say this total's a little low for this park in this type of warm weather, so it would be a lean for me on the over. But I do have respect for these two arms. Phillies bats still aren't fully back. They had a decent series over the weekend, but again, still tough to trust for me in a few different ways with their sticks. But again, I don't know how you could bet this under at this park with this heat. So yeah, call it a lean in favor of the over. Orioles, Blue Jays, another fat line. Alex Manoah, who often warrants fat lines, going up against Kyle Bradish, who's been bad, but not nearly as bad as his surface looks. This is a tough ask of the Orioles to win here. Obviously, as we know, Manoah is very good against right-handed bats, one of the better starting pitchers in baseball against right-handed bats. I don't say closer there because there are closers that are better, but he is really good. He's been really good all season against right-handed bats. And here the Orioles, of course, we know the team is stacked with that. So it feels like it'll be tough sledding for them to score runs here. Call it a slight lean in favor of the under at 8.5 in this big park. But again, Bradish is definitely suspect to give up a lot of hard contact. And Manoah's been really good, but he's had weird starts against teams he should pitch well against. But all in all, he's been having a great season. But here, no, I don't see much value. Again, if this was to peak to 9, I would probably actually end up firing on the under. But at 8.5, it's a stay away. Toronto probably should be about 175 here. It's a little bit of value, but as these numbers creep up, you need more than this. So overall, and again, that value that I'm being a little biased on is that I do believe Bradish is going to progress to the mean a bit, or slowly progress to the mean a bit, because he's been bad, but he hasn't been nearly this bad. Red Sox, Braves, Rich Hill, Charlie Morton, Atlanta minus 160. This will be a slight lean over at 9.5. My problem with betting this over is you do have 2 pitchers with upside. I don't like firing on overs with 2 pitchers that bring upside. Now, Morton gives up a lot of hard contact and is often worse on the road. He often walks too many guys on the road, does have control issues. Rich Hill's kind of the same thing, right? He has control issues as well. But man, the idea of a crafty lefty against this Braves lineup with off-speed stuff just feels like there's going to be a lot of rockets off the bats from this Braves team in this spot. But again, the Red Sox are getting healthier, and while their playoff chances are basically out the window, this team does still have a lot of good bats at the top of this lineup. Should threaten Morton a bit. But again, slightly lean. But again, I never like playing overs at this type of number at this park when you have two pitchers that do bring upside to the table. Overall. And it'll be warm in Fenway tomorrow, but it's not going to be super warm. So overall makes it an easy pass spot for me. JJ regression is over. What's up, Jordan? Yeah, I know you've been on the O's all season. I mean, I love it, especially later. I was on the O's a lot earlier in the year, but their runners in scoring position woes were a bit tilting to deal with. Now you're getting a little better end from them, especially in the running and scoring position category where they're just starting to finally pile up some runs, which has been great. And I'm glad you've been on them because that's fantastic that you've been able to cash from it. But not against Pirates was too high for me in those games. Yeah, so you're going to get some decent numbers here. Manoah, again, super tough versus lefties, but I can't mind the spot. Okay, so Mets-Reds. Mets, what a series with them versus the Braves. Really showed some, dare I say, spunk. Carlos Carrasco, a.k.a. Cookie, goes up against Mike Minor. Mike Minor can eat innings, which is good in some ways, but still he is still tilting in his own right. It's tough to imagine this dude's still in the league. But again, he does eat innings for a team that's looking for something like that at this point in the year. Be a warm game in City, but this is not a park where the ball travels well. This feels like a really big line here at 9. Call it a lean at the under. This park, and I get it, it's tough because the Mets are going to have hard contact against Minor, a lefty, and the Mets have a lot of talented right-handed bats. But man, that is a big number for this park. So yeah, slight lean in favor of the under, but it is a scary bet, all things considered, because the Mets can definitely get runs. But if this game is relatively close, of the 4-3 variety, 5-3 variety, you're going to get healthy, good an inning out of Edwin Diaz, who seems to be as lock shut a case as there is in baseball from the closer position. Mets bullpen got a little heated this weekend, but not enough where they didn't win games. Ottavino looked and Lugo seems to always look but again, at least they have Edwin Diaz at the end of there. But slightly under. Don't love anything else. Guardians Tigers. Shane Bieber is $1.90 here. Total 7.5 against Tyler Alexander. Tyler Alexander's been okay. I think he's another pitcher that's been a little fortunate. The sample size is still small for this season, but he is giving up a lot of foot traffic, which is always alarming, despite what someone's ERA is, because that could come back to bite you. Now, will it bite him against Cleveland here? Probably not. His team doesn't exactly make teams pay for mistakes very often. I've said this all season. I feel like Francona's done a really good job with this crew. They're not very talented. They probably are one of the worst offenses in their division. They have one of the worst starting pitching rotations in their division. And their bullpen, they've gotten a lot of good out of that bullpen. But here they are. They sit 4 games above 500. So kudos to Francona for me. I mean, in my opinion, because he's done a good job with this ball club. On the Tigers end, team that's not looking to win games these days. Seems like a small line. Maybe for Bieber, but remember, this is a road start. Bieber's been good, but he definitely hasn't been his Cy Young self all season. The velo does seem to be a bit back, which is great, but for me personally, I have this around Cleveland 165, but again, it is tough this time of year to bet on bad teams, right? No matter how much value you think there is or maybe or may not be, it is tough to bet on these teams in these types of spots. So I'll stay away overall, but call it a slight lean Tigers money line. No. Again, doubleheader game 2, Royals White Sox. Nothing I love here. I don't even think we have a pitching matchup. So, yeah, again, tough to love anything or even talk about anything in that game. I burned that expression after this weekend. Yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right, buzzer beater. It's I did not burn the shirt yet, but I was definitely thinking about it. That was a rough showing. Well, I'll be honest though. It felt like Saturday I should have won that Padres game. Right? You got 2 out, 2 strikes, runner on second. Or I think he plunked a guy with a runner on with a runner on second, and then he gives up the 3-run homer to Muncy to blow the game, which kind of sucked to be honest. But again, is what it is. Lost a few games by the hook, especially this weekend, especially over the last week or so in this sport. But thank God tennis has been good with it getting away from the clay swing and back on the hard courts. U.S. hard courts has always been a favorable end for me to bet in tennis, so been great on that aspect. Cubs Nationals, Marcus Stroman. I don't think we have a total for this. Going up against Paolo Espino, sorry. Espino's actually been decent And I feel like Stroman's been really good this year. I'm surprised the Cubs didn't deal Stroman at the deadline. I feel like he was definitely a targetable pitcher who's pitched well for a bad team this year. You move him to a team that's actually trying to win games, and confidence could build there, and he could have a strong finish to the year. Espino, kind of like a glorified relief pitcher, a guy that typically never eats a lot of innings, but more or less he's serviceable. The Nats need serviceable guys these days, right? We're not going to have a total here. It'll be kind of warm, but not super warm in Wrigley. I don't know what the win situation is. These are just two teams tough to feel good about betting on, right? I mean, should the Cubs be minus 200 against the Nationals? I mean, probably not. But, the Nationals don't really bring to life any bats, which is kind of scary. At least the Cubs have some potent bats in that lineup. So, yeah, I could see it. Cubs are a little padded here, but not nearly enough for me to want to fire. Brewers, Rays, Brandon Woodruff, and here's a name you don't see every night. Yacobonis, Jimmy Yacobonis. I don't have much data on this kid. I know he was recently brought up. I know he's a bit of a relief pitcher, I guess. I think they brought him up in the beginning of June, middle of June, somewhere around there. He pitches about an inning or two. This will be a bullpen day all around for the Rays. But needless to say, actually, this was a trade component, wasn't it? Now that I think about it, that's why this name looks so familiar. What team was he on? Was he in the Marlins, maybe? I think it was in the Marlins. Yep, confirmed Marlins. So, yeah, I don't like this kid, but obviously they're going to try to open with him. You could get a spot start, different change here. He hasn't been excellent by any means, but again, the sample's relatively small. Interesting if the Rays decided to go after him, though. So maybe, but again, it's kind of like the Dodgers, the Rays. Like when pitchers go to these teams, they just pitch better. It's like I said on the live show, I think on Saturday, maybe, where maybe Sunday I said it. Like these teams need to be reverse engineering what guys like what teams like the Rays do and what teams like the Dodgers do with how these pitchers have so much success when they move over to these ball clubs. But needless to say, I would expect Yacobonis to pitch better for the Rays over the whole of the season. But we don't even have a line here. It'll likely be kind of thick, I guess. If I had to guess, it's probably will be about minus 165, minus 170 in favor of the Brew Crew, maybe even larger. But let me see. Yeah, we don't have a true line. Again, I'm making this line. It's going to be about minus 170 Brew Crew. Okay, so Astros, Rangers, Jose Urquidy, and Martin Perez. Martin Perez continues to be a complete enigma this year. The guy has done nothing special all year. He hasn't changed much of his pitches. He hasn't changed much of his velocity, whereas the years prior, he was a bit of a gas can. This year, he's been almost untouchable, which you'd have to attribute towards location. Jose Urquidy, all of a sudden, is going through a good pitching stretch where he's throwing well. I would consider him one of the worst pitchers on this Astros staff, kind of like Luis Garcia. But again, you know your staff is good when these two are your worst pitchers in it. So, and the Astros continue to slowly but surely churn away wins. Team's 30 games over 500. We still have, over a quarter of the year to go. Do they want a 190 tag here? Probably not. But again, I refuse to back or fade Martin Perez at this stage of the season because regression almost has to be coming. But if you've been hoping for regression to come to Martin Perez this year, you've been burning a lot of money. So stay away spot for me overall, and we'll just move on. Rockies, Cardinals, Ryan Feltner, Miles Mikolas. This will be a best bet for me. This is over 11. So this is who we're looking at here. Cardinals. That's minus 110. So I like this game over. You're going to get a super warm game in Colorado. I know these types of spots haven't done well for me, but it doesn't mean I go away from them. Feltner hasn't been great. And he wasn't really great last year either. But, maybe he gets some positive progression, but it likely won't be in this start. The Cardinals bats are as healthy as they've been all season. And it definitely complicates things in relation to, thinking or assuming he's going to have a decent start here. Miles Mikolas, I've said this for a few starts now. Dude really runs pure. His surface numbers look okay. The whip is good, but he gives up a lot of hard contact. And I think he's actually pitched in Coors this year. Or was it maybe just against the Rockies? Maybe I'm wrong. We're starting to see things start to bite him, though. I mean, think about it. This is a guy that's pitched against Cincinnati twice, the Nats and the Cubs, and he's actually given up a decent chunk of earned runs. He's going to see a Rockies lineup that still is without Chris Bryant, but is still the best or one of the best home scoring teams in the league, which isn't like a true accolade towards them because they play in the softest field in the league, or the shortest field in the league, if you will, with the air. But Mikolas has been running so pure, and I'd love to not so much totally fade him in this spot, but I do think the Rockies are going to get to him a bit. And on the Feltner end, look, the Cardinals have a really live lineup, and they really just spanked the shit out of the Yankees in a few different games, actually. They sweep them? Yeah, I mean, they just swept the Yanks. This team has now won, 7 in a row and 9 of 11 or 9 of 10, something like that. This team's rolling, and they've been really good with the sticks, and this is a good spot for their bats to just keep going. And again, the Rockies' bats are what they are, but they're better at home, and I would expect them to get to Mikolas. Mikolas is not as much of a ground ball pitcher anymore either. Like, he's giving up a decent amount of fly balls. He will pay the price if he decides to leave a few things up in this game. Again, you're going to get a warm game in Wrigley and Coors, which is always good for the ball carrying. Hasn't been great so far this year, but again, you're kind of just going off history here. Total of 11 here feels really light. This should be a spot where it's 11.5. So I was happy to jump on the over. Angels Athletics, you had Ohtani and Kaprelian in a revenge matchup, if you will. Kaprelian outpitched him when the game was in LA. Interestingly enough, when it was in LA, that line was 220. Now it's 190. 30 cents for a home field advantage for a team that has no home field advantage. So I would argue, just based on trying to find value or sap value out of a previous line, that there would be value on the A's here. But as you guys know, I don't bet the Angels games anymore because they've been too silly for my liking. So yeah, easy stay away for me overall. But again, if you're talking to trying to sap value out of lines, Ohtani was 220 at home in this spot. He's now 190. I would not argue that home road is worth 30 cents here for Oakland. So even if you thought there was value last week, there'd be even more value this week on the Angels here behind Ohtani. Diamondbacks, Pirates. So a battle of two tomato can pitchers. So Zach Thompson has not been good by any means. Henry has upside, though. I know this is another lefty that they recently brought up. But he didn't pitch well in his first start against Cleveland, but he has upside, and he's likely going to throw better in this start. Zach Thompson, the sample size is very large. Like, this guy's not very good. But again, you're the Pirates. You're just looking for guys that hopefully can eat you innings. This total likely bumps up to 9, but I will stay away. I don't like betting unders in this park. I don't like betting overs in this park that are 8.5 or less, primarily because with the humidor and this roof always being shut in this super warm weather, it's just a big ask of this many runs to plate in a game. You're really hoping for home runs because you typically don't have piling up of hits in this stadium, or ever since they made the humidor change. But yeah, I mean, two pitchers that I'm not all that familiar with. I mean, Thompson, obviously the sample size is very, very big for how poor he's pitched this year, but I haven't followed him a lot this year. I don't like to just jump in on pitchers like this. And Henry, the data is super small, but I get decent in AAA, but overall, easy stay away spot for me. You could argue for some value on the Pirates, but it is very tough to trust Thompson by any regards. You're going to get the better lineup with the Diamondbacks as well. Padres Giants, this will be my other best bet. I'm going to back Joe Musgrove here at home. Musgrove for me is very similar to Blake Snell. I love backing this guy at home. I've been doing this now for a few seasons with him. I don't always love it because usually the line is super padded. I do not consider this line padded by any means. He comes off a start against Colorado at home where got absolutely shelled. And he's been getting shelled. But this spot, you talk about progression to the mean. I really like this spot. And against the Giants here, the Giants are kind of skidding, right? Like, I think that the Padres had it out for them right against the Dodgers. This is a good home series to kind of really find their footing. And any team, I'm sure not named the LA Dodgers right now, is going to be welcoming to the Padres. I don't think this will move much because if I had to guess, Padres money is going to come in. Alex Cobb gets respect, but he doesn't necessarily deserve it, in my opinion. The advanced stuff doesn't always back him up. And he typically gives up just a ton of hard contact, and walks are usually a problem. Musgrove is so reliable at home, or very often reliable at home. The Colorado start that just happened couldn't have been more of an enigma. So for me, I do really like the spot. And again, his ERA is now bigger at home than it was away. But remember, he is somebody who just gave up 6 earned in his last start. So again, I will say this about this specific spot in particular. These spots have not made me a lot of money this year. They've actually lost me a lot of money where I grab pitchers that have been regressing, and the line opens up a bit. This has typically been a moneymaker for me over the course of the last few seasons in baseball. This season, however, it is not. You can almost chase regression this year in this sport. If you've been chasing regression in this sport, you've made yourself some money with various pitchers. I just can't change the way I cap this sport. I do feel very confident that this swing will turn itself back. And a guy like Musgrove pitching poorly, I feel like, I know this sounds silly, but I do feel like we're getting a soft line here at 180. And then you're getting an even softer line on the first 5. So I laid the first half run first 5, minus 110, bet MGM. So, and again, it's like I said on the video the last week, or on Sunday, you can get your best first 5s at BetMGM if you're laying a half run. And here I'm definitely laying a half run. So Padres first 5, minus 0.5, minus 110, and that's BetMGM. So overall, so that's okay. So those are going to be my 2 best bets. I will talk through these last 2 games though for you guys. So Dodgers Twins. Dodgers cost me a lot of money this weekend. I did back the Padres quite a bit, and it was quite costly for me. But again, you're not going to make a whole lot of money fading the Dodgers every day. Julio Urias goes up against Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan, who was last seen giving up 55 home runs. That's not true. That was 2 starts ago. I really like this kid. I feel like it was very clear he didn't have it against the Padres a few starts ago. They gave him a really long leash. It actually inflated his ERA a ton. But typically he's all reliable. My problem with Ryan, though, is it seems like when he does play good lineups, he does get himself a little tilted. Now, granted, as long as he can keep this ball in the ballpark, I do believe he can make this a game. You throw Urias out here, but Urias is a lefty who does struggle occasionally with right-handed bats. That is something the Twins bring to the table. I think this line's likely going to move, though. It's likely going to close closer to 220, 225. So if you want to bet the Twins, to me, I'd wait. But Joe Ryan, like I said, I'm a Joe Ryan guy. I would argue for some value here on the Twins, but fading the Dodgers is not exactly what people call a fun time. So we'll stay away overall. But again, if this line was to inflate to, say, 240, I truthfully might grab the half run first 5 with Joe Ryan at dog money. Mariners, Yankees, Luis Castillo, Garrett Cole. I am very happy that the Mariners went out and got Castillo. I honestly don't even think they gave up that much, to be honest. I don't think they gave up much at all. And it's nice to get a guy like Castillo. The problem with the Mariners is they really need to win over the next 2 years. You're going to have contracts coming up. You're going to have some elements to this where it's really got to be like a win now kind of mentality. And I think Castillo helps them get there. Garrett Cole is coming off, I think, his season worst start, literally against Seattle. It is very rare. I will say this. It is very rare for a guy like Garrett Cole to get beat up in back-to-back starts, especially from the same team. So, but with that said, he has not been good by any means. This guy has given up, 2 earned or more in 3 straight and 3 earned or more in 4 of his last 5 starts, 5 earned in his last 2. He just hasn't been the model citizen of consistency that he's been all season. And what's crazy is he's given up all these runs. His ERA is still only 3.56. So he was kind of pitching out of his mind most of the year. But maybe he's dealing with some head issues here. You always wonder when pitchers consistently, are giving up consistent hard contact like this, it does get a little silly. Castillo, I do like backing him at home, but this is like a new home, so it's not the same thing as the Great American Small Park. But here at T-Mobile, the Mariners, are starting to plate wins again, and this lineup is arguably as good as most. I mean, it has a lot of talent in it up and down the lineup. Yankees, though, had that interesting skid, right? I mean, they've now lost 6 games in a row, dare I say? They've lost 5 in a row and 6 of 7. And don't look now. This team was on a historical pace to win baseball games this year. And now you have the Astros at only a half game back from their record. You don't want the Astros to have home field advantage against this team because they're already the Yankees' father. But in relation to this start, I'd love to back Castillo here as a small dog. It is just very difficult to love him in this spot. It almost feels like you're getting such a bottom of the wheelbarrow price on Garrett Cole. I mean, think about this. How many times are you going to get Garrett Cole at minus 135 against a team not named the Astros in the American League? The number feels small. It's like going to inflate a bit. I will stay away. But I will say this, if somehow quote unquote reverse steam comes in, or even if steam comes in on the Mariners, I may back Cole here. I just hate backing teams that have lost 6 or 7 in a row. Because again, you worry about what's going on in that locker room. Granted, they don't have anything to hold their morals on. The Yankees have had a tremendous year, but they're streaking, and I'm not looking to bucket. That's for sure. You don't want to be doing that in this sport to begin with. So, like I said, maybe slight value on the Mariners, but man, it is tough warrant or convince yourself that there's value fading Garrett Cole at a low price of -135. Okay, so that wraps up the show. Gave you guys the 2 best bets. Yes, this is a referee hat. Yes, for the first inning was Bank and Multi. Yeah, good call, Lance. Good call. I think you called it as well. Coin flip overs and unders. Vital side, I can't disagree there. I've been much better with overs this year than unders. I've been very, very bad at getting the right spots with unders, but overall, I guess I can't complain. It's been a positive baseball season for me. As I continue to say, I'm just still trying to get myself out of the clay bind from tennis. But, hard courts have helped and been regressing a bit in baseball, but hoping to really bounce back, this week with some of these games. And I like the over in that Colorado game. So, yeah, over 11 in Colorado, and I laid the half run first 5 behind a struggling Joe Musgrove, where I think we're getting some value there. BetMGM -110. Those are the 2 bets, folks. I know you all, I thank you all for who popped in. A little more than I expected, actually, this late at night, especially talking baseball for the next day. But again, thanks as everybody for joining in. You'll be able to watch the show, obviously, whether it's now or whether it's later or tomorrow morning or whatever. So no solo pick from me, but I did go through the live show because I'm hoping to get a little traction after kind of lost you guys some money this weekend. So that's why we're here, always to help. But yes, folks, gamble responsibly, stay safe, and as always, run pure. I'll see you guys back with the golf crew on Wednesday, and then back with a solo event on Friday. So until then,